He walked into the station house at 2:17 a.m. No appointment, no lawyer. Just blood on his shirt and a story. His name was Samuel Mercer, a 32-year-old man with no criminal record. The locals described him as quiet, kept to himself, and mind his own business. He worked construction and lived alone. For all intents and purposes, Samuel was just another face in the crowd. In fact, nobody in the small town really noticed him until that night. It was April 26, 2019, when he strolled into the Carthage, Missouri police station covered in blood. He told the cops inside, "I know who killed her." And right there and then, he spilled everything. And what he had to say would shock the nation. But first, we need to go back a little over 3 weeks to March, because that's when Leah Harmon disappeared. She was last seen leaving a bar just outside of Kansas City around 11 p.m. on March. When she didn't show up for work the next morning, her family grew worried and reported her missing. As the days passed, and there were still no signs of Leah or any leads on her disappearance, the case grew colder and colder. By mid-April, the Carthage police were stumped. But luckily, they weren't alone. Hundreds of volunteers joined forces with local, state, and federal agencies, all determined to find Leah. They handed out thousands of flyers, went door to door, and searched every inch of the area. But all their efforts seemed futile. There were no sightings, no witnesses, no new leads. It seemed like the case would go nowhere. That was until the early morning hours of April, when Samuel Mercer walked through the doors of the Carthage police station and changed everything. The officers on duty remember him stumbling in just after 2 a.m., drenched in blood, both on his clothes and in his hair. He was clearly shaken and scared, but he was also adamant that he needed to speak with someone about Leah's murder. Now, from the moment Samuel stepped into the station, the cops knew this was no ordinary call. Why would someone covered in blood come to the police station in the middle of the night, unless he was involved somehow? But before they could question him about what actually happened, Samuel began telling them his story. And according to what he told the cops, he was close friends with Leah and was the last person to see her alive. He said that on the night she disappeared, he and Leah met up with 2 other friends and went to a couple of bars, including the one where she was last seen on surveillance footage. He said after they left the bar, they all got into a fight, and when Samuel tried to break it up, he was accidentally stabbed in the chest with a bottle. According to him, the fight must have gotten even more heated because when he looked back, he saw Leah lying on the ground with blood coming out of her mouth. He said he tried to help her, but she was already gone. And right there and then, Samuel said that he buried her in a shallow grave near Lake Vermilion, just outside of town. Then, for reasons unknown, he waited 3 weeks to tell the police. After hearing his story, Samuel agreed to let the cops take him to the location where he said he buried Leah's body. But before they could leave, they needed to get him cleaned up so that he wouldn't scare the other officers. So they brought him into a separate room to change his clothes and wash up. But while they were doing that, Samuel made a full confession, spilling every last detail of what he witnessed that night, naming names, describing the scene, and even giving the cops a piece of advice, telling them to check the security footage from the bar where Leah was last seen. After that, they took him to the hospital to get stitches for his injury, and then to the spot where he said he buried Leah's body. But before they even started digging, they checked the security footage from the bar, and what they found shocked them. The video showed Leah leaving the bar with a man that wasn't Samuel, walking hand in hand. Now, when Samuel arrived at the station, he told the cops that he was the last person to see Leah alive. But now, the security footage proved that wasn't true. And not only that, but it also cleared Samuel of being involved in the murder, since he wasn't even there. In fact, the entire story he told the police fell apart almost immediately. They found the spot where he said he buried Leah, but there was no body there. This was strange. If he truly witnessed the murder and buried her there afterwards, why would he lead the cops to an empty grave? When the police returned to the station, they brought Samuel in for questioning. They asked him about the inconsistencies and he broke down. Samuel confessed that he lied about most of the story, saying that he never saw Leah get murdered. In fact, he didn't even know how she died. So then why did he cover himself in blood and claim to be a witness? Well, Samuel said that he had a dream about Leah's murder, and that the vision led him to the spot where her body was buried. Honestly, that sounded crazy. I mean, we've heard of dreams predicting the future or coincidences, but this was something else. The police were left baffled. Who was Samuel Mercer, and what did he know about Leah's death? Were parts of his story true? Did he witness the murder but couldn't remember, or was he completely delusional? At the time, the cops weren't sure what to think, and to be honest, they didn't have enough evidence to arrest Samuel for filing a false police report either, so they let him go, telling him to stay in town while they investigated further. For the next week, Samuel stayed put and answered every question the police had for him. But as the days passed and he wasn't arrested, he began to grow impatient. On April, Samuel packed up his belongings, called a friend, and left town. Before leaving, he cashed his paycheck and bought a bus ticket to Las Vegas. Once there, he rented a car and drove into the desert where he was last seen on camera at a Walmart in Bakersfield, California. After that, he disappeared. Samuel left behind his wallet, his pickup truck, even his beloved dog. There were no signs of struggle. No witnesses, no security footage of him leaving, and most strangely, there were no cell phone pings. It was like he vanished into thin air. This is where things get weird because soon after he left Carthage, Missouri, Samuel became a person of interest in Leah's murder. And as the investigation grew, several inconsistencies began to surface. For starters, the blood that Samuel had on his clothes wasn't his. DNA testing confirmed it was Leah's blood, but it also matched the blood found on the handle of a crowbar used to beat her to death. But Samuel told the police he had nothing to do with Leah's murder. And besides, if he committed the crime, why would he confess to a bunch of strangers and lead them to her body, only to direct them to an empty grave? Was he covering up for the real killer? Did he kill Leah and stage his own disappearance? Or was he delusional and made the whole thing up? The police were desperate for answers, but it seemed like Samuel was gone for good. He told the cops he had no money, no job, and no plan when he left Missouri. Yet he was able to buy a one-way bus ticket, rent a car, and survive in the desert for months. Where did he get the money? Was he saving it for a long time, or was he planning to rob someone? Then there was the fact that Samuel was never arrested. He was a material witness in a murder investigation. Why didn't anyone try to keep him in town? Was it because the police believed his story? Did they let him go because he was a victim? Or was it because they suspected him of killing Leah? The more questions the police had, the fewer answers they got. And as the investigation continued, more inconsistencies surfaced. The security footage from the bar where Leah was last seen was blurry. The store surveillance cameras near the spot where Samuel said he buried her were broken. And the people who owned them said they hadn't been working for weeks. Coincidence? Maybe. But then again, maybe not. The police were eventually able to track down the man Leah was seen leaving the bar with, but he was given an alibi by multiple witnesses. He wasn't involved. The same man who was with Leah the night she disappeared was in a different city, Mississippi, where he was caught on camera, buying plane tickets for a trip to visit his girlfriend. As the months passed, the case went cold, once again with no leads and no suspects. But Samuel's story still echoed in the minds of the investigators. Could he be hiding somewhere, waiting for the heat to die down? Did he kill Leah and run away? Or was he just an innocent victim who stumbled upon a crime scene and got framed? Today, Leah Harmon's murder remains officially unsolved. Police have no leads, no suspects, and no sign of Samuel Mercer. But here's what we think happened. After Samuel talked with the police, he realized that he might be in danger. Leah's killer could be watching him, waiting for him to slip up, and the only way to protect himself was to disappear. That's why he left behind his truck, his dog, and even his wallet. He didn't want to be followed. He didn't want to leave any trace. But before he left, he bought a bus ticket and headed west, hoping to start a new life far away from Carthage, Missouri. He may have believed that the police would forget about him if he vanished, that they wouldn't put the pieces together and realize that he was a witness, not a suspect. Unfortunately for Samuel, the police did eventually figure it out. They realized he disappeared. They found his abandoned truck and they tracked his movements to the desert. But by then, Samuel had already disappeared. Was he killed by the real murderer? Did he stumble upon a crime scene and get framed? Or did he kill Leah and stage his own disappearance? We may never know the truth. All we can do is wonder. Some cases end with answers. Others just leave questions. This was The Final Hour.